2011 and 2012 academic year. Can everybody hear me? Thank you everyone for coming out here. And I'm now going to invite 4 faculty members up to present awards to students that memorialize some of our cherished past faculty members. So John Visvader is going to start us off.
Sardine factories went out of business. Well, I've taught philosophy here for a number of years, and so I guess it's only appropriate I get to give what was called the Philosophy and Human Ecology Award. It's in honor of our first philosophy faculty member. I know some people up there will say probably our last philosophy professor, Dick Davis. And the award is entitled the Richard Slayton Davis and Nora Deacon Davis Scholarship Award. I never got to meet Dick Davis. I came after his untimely death. But I did have interesting contact with him some years ago because I was helping in editing one of the first volumes out on environmental ethics and commemorating the first Earth Day. And I happened to be the reader of one of Dick's papers to be included in that volume. And it was a really thick and heavy paper. Dick was really interested in Alfred North Whitehead, the famous philosopher. And his paper was an interesting attempt to bring this very deep philosophy together with environmental problems. And I think Dick thought that it would be a way to synthesize human ecology. On the one hand, you have the sciences, and the other hand, you had the arts and humanities, and Dick used Whitehead to try to combine the two because he thought mind and body went together. Dick not only was an interesting philosopher, but let's see, in these days we have lots of deans, and we didn't have any deans in those days, but if they did have deans, he would be a kind of super dean. And because he was very influential in formulating the principles and guiding the ideas of the college. And I'm sure he would be proud of the college today, what it's grown into, except his little thing about committees. He was always dedicated to reducing the number of committees, but that hasn't happened. Anyway, he'd also be proud of the recipient of the award today, Matthew McElwee. Is Matt here? Before you get the thing, I have to say a few words about you. Matt has been really interested in a wide range of topics. He's taken a lot of philosophy courses. He's been interested in Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, mysticism, and even analytic philosophy. And to show how profound he is, I'm just teasing you now. I'm gonna read you the title of his last paper that he wrote for me in analytic philosophy. It's called Setting Straight Categorizations of Concepts, Actions, and Motions. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't even understand the paper, but in philosophy, that's really good because if somebody can understand your paper, it shows you're not profound enough. No, I'm only kidding. Actually, his paper was really good. The subtitle shows that it wasn't, here's the subtitle, Taking a Whack at the Problem of Mental Causation. So, and he did take a whack at it. The problem, I'm going to go in a minute, but the problem of mental causation is this is probably one of the most profound problems in computer science and philosophy and neurophysiology, cognitive science. It's how do I manage to wiggle my finger? How can my thought make my finger move? and this is, sounds like a silly problem, but and he took a whack at it, and I think he did a good job. Also, Matt was one of a small group of students who pioneered practical techniques for turning waste food into butanol, a fuel. And I think they had a project of trying to get restaurants around the island to donate their waste food and then turn it into fuel.
Yeah, still working on it.
Still working on it. But anyway, here, good. Good for you.
Hello, and thank you all for coming to this convocation. Darren's first. It's really our first as president. Obviously, came to 4 others. I'm Ann Kozak. I am the writing program director and teach writing. And today I have the privilege of awarding the John Dreyer Scholarship. The annual scholarship awards honors John C. Dreyer, a former diplomat in the Department of State and U.S. ambassador to the Organization of American States, who devoted his retirement in Maine to education and conservation. He joined COA's Board of Trustees in 1973 and served as chairman of the board from 1976 to 1978. He supported the growth of participatory democracy in the all-college meeting at COA, including initiating its steering committee. This scholarship is awarded to a junior who has shown leadership in building community spirit with COA and the island and surrounding communities. And it's awarded to a junior, but both of the honorees this year, Lucy Atkins and Heather White, are actually now seniors, because we made these choices last spring. Lucy is at Chewonki Foundation doing an internship and cannot be here today. And it's particularly pleasing for me to talk about Lucy, because Lucy has worked for me now. This will be her 4th year working as a writing tutor in the Writing Center. And in addition to being a good tutor, she works very hard at trying to keep me in line so that I do everything and don't mess up any order or lose anything. So I really appreciate her. She's an active and engaged student leader at College of the Atlantic. In addition to her supportive role as a writing tutor and mentor, she regularly volunteers for tasks and articulates and is an articulate and hardworking student. Most notably, she played a key role in the lengthy search for an anthropology position. Her organizational skills, attitude, and interest ensured that her fellow students provided strong support and had good access to all of the candidates. Although she would be much happier sitting alone on the side of a cliff or a rock than in a meeting, Lucy has played a critical role in building community spirit at COA and upholding the values that John Dreyer brought to the college. And so I know that she'll be very pleased to receive this, and we'll thank COA I'm thanking COA on her behalf. Heather White, who's with us today, was nominated by Dave Feldman, and so the I's in this part of it are quotes from Dave. Heather demonstrates gentle and effective leadership, has good organizational skills, and is passionate about her work. She handles difficult situations with grace and poise. She has been involved in activities outside of COA. Last fall, Heather became a participant of the Transition Towns group of Hancock County. Heather uses the flexibility of COA to weave together a number of her interests in and outside the classroom. She has taken courses ranging from sustainability and renewable energy to midwifery and women's studies. She's deeply concerned about the environment and the strength and resilience of local communities. Heather has formed connections among her course, and I, Dave Feldman, have been impressed with her personal and academic growth over the last 3 years. Heather has shown impressive commitment, and she quietly does a lot of work that helps bring people together. This is perhaps a different model for engagement and leadership than we often celebrate, but it's very important, end of quote. So Heather? Congratulations. You want to say anything? Okay.
this is always a risk because you never know if the people getting the award actually are going to show up. Because the juniors and seniors are usually too cool to come to Convocation. This is a real pleasure for me, this award. It's the Louisa Cabot Richardson Dreyer Award. Louisa Cabot Richardson Dreyer, known as Issa, was an artist of remarkable talent who, like many women of her time, set aside her work to focus on raising her family while keeping her creativity alive through drawings, illustrated writings, and gardens. Coming back to painting later in life, her beautiful still lives and portraits expressed her humor, happy spirit, and her joy in making art. The Issa Dreyer Scholarship will be given annually to a junior who embodies the spirit of joy in the arts. I knew John and Issa well. I spent many wonderful evenings in front of their marvelous fireplace on Vernal Point, and they spent many evenings with me. Every New Year's, we actually had a party where we actually waltzed, the real Viennese waltz. Wonderful people. John, trustee of the college in a critical period. Issa, always a delight. I learned so much from her. I would always go to dinner early there because we would talk shop, go in the studio. And she had this wonderful technique of covering her paintings with small pieces of paper to get the color right. She would color the paper and then stick it into the wet paint all over. The paintings became very shaggy. And she could have sold them as standalone works of art, sort of installation or three-dimensional works of art. But the spirit with which we painted, that she brought out in her paintings, really lived with me and had a big influence on my work, I think. We had trouble deciding between two qualified, wonderfully accomplished art students, so we chose them both. And the award goes to a student that I've never had in class, and we all run into this. They either take all of our classes or they avoid us. And that is Jocelyn Richardson here. No? I have some quotes from other faculty members who've worked with her. She's an exceptional student, has a wide range of abilities, can imagine, describe, and execute a vision into a remarkable image. I chose Jocelyn because of the superb quality of her work and high level of constructive interaction with her peers. Her papers on visual cultural excellence. I'm impressed by Jocelyn. Her animation created in the animation intro class was accepted by the main film festival, which is some sort of testament. The other person I've worked with extensively, he's actually saved my life, my TA, my right hand, and that's Alonso Diaz Ricards. There he is. Great work. Thanks. We all know.
Full house. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Suzanne Morse. I'm one of the botanists at COA, also known as the scientist gone bad. And what that means is that I have a human ecological orientation towards all things botanical. And but it's my pleasure today to talk about the Craig Green Memorial Award. And Craig Green was a well-loved botanist here who had a supercharged smile and enjoyed everything botanical. And he was very dedicated and worked very carefully looking at the systematics of various grasses. And if any of you have spent any time looking at the reproductive biology of grasses, you realize you have to spend very concentrated effort to understand the grasses. And he also then spent a great deal of time on shadbush. And if you haven't met the shadbush, you should meet the shadbush, and you will next spring. And that's when you know spring is really coming. And so it's a great plant to study. But it's also, you look around and you think there are all these, there's one shadbush, maybe two, maybe three. But actually, Craig, with his work, demonstrated there were hundreds of shad bushes out there, hiding out there, just hiding their identity inside their chromosomes. So Craig had a great deal of pleasure in everything botanical, and he loved to hike. If you look at the new floor for Acadia National Park, you'll see a lovely photograph of him with some COA students sitting out on a rock, clearly having a very good time finding the rare species of MDI. But he also had a great time in the grocery store. He could tell you all kinds of stories about any kind of vegetable that you could pull off the shelf. And that's actually a little more interesting to do now than it probably was 20 years ago when he was started this work, because the grocery stores here have gotten a little more interesting. But he truly had a great time and was a very dedicated botanist. So we have the Craig Green Memorial Scholarship Award. And this year we have chosen to honor Meg Trow. Hi, Meg. How are you? And Benicia and I both think wonderful things about Meg, and I would just have to say that she's had this very long-term and deep interest in plants, and particularly the relationship between plants and people. I think that it's very impressive. She did this wonderful garden design for the Spruce Knob Mountain Center for me in theory and practice organic gardening class. So it's truly exceptional in her application of the ideas and having a great vision for that garden. And right now, she's also developing an ethnobotanical curriculum for secondary education. But I would say overall, Meg, whenever she was in a botany class, I don't know much about you in other classes, but in a botany class, she always excelled. And we found her highly disciplined and driven and had just a knack for all things botanical. Craig would have really loved working with you, Meg, and I'm sorry you didn't have the opportunity to meet him. And I would just note that Meg is incredibly passionate, dedicated to understand the complex relationships between plants and people. And her very careful approach to all botanical work is truly admirable and befitting of this award. So congratulations, Meg.
I'm now going to invite Ken Klein up to present another award.
Yeah, I get a special introduction. Actually, the reason for this separation is because all the previous awards were for past faculty members, and this award is actually for a student. In the mid-90s, we had a student at the college that I got to know who was really passionate about marine conservation. Anything marine, spent as much time out on the rock as she could. You know, like Sean, students these days love the idea of a dead, smelly whale to cut up. You know, would jump at any opportunity to get wet and salty. She, finishing her work with Allied Whale when she graduated, she worked as an observer for National Marine Fisheries Service, doing right whale work, traveled around the world with Roger Payne with this expedition that, literally was documenting all 7 seas. They went everywhere you could think of that was marine, doing education, doing conservation research. And what was great with this student, whose name was Rebecca Clark, was that she used all aspects of her education in the work that she did. She was doing, research, whale surveys, but she was also helping small, developing countries write legislation to create marine reserves, was using her artistic talent to help students understand the things that she was doing, working with community leaders. It was really one of those instances where somebody had taken a passion, came to COA, and figured out how to pull all those pieces together. In 2005, we lost Rebecca to the tsunami in Thailand. And she was doing actually sea turtle education. She was doing exactly what she wanted, and probably couldn't have been in a more perfect place doing the things that she loved. And so friends of the college, faculty, others created this scholarship to try to celebrate that kind of passion and love for the ocean and everything that goes with it. In choosing the Rebecca Clark Scholarship this year, the faculty looked for a rising senior who embodies a lot of Rebecca's traits of just that passion, enthusiasm, sort of contagious joy in everything marine. And this year, the obvious choice for that award is Marina Garland. Aside from Marina's name, and it sounds like she was destined for a scholarship having to do with the marine environment, Marina just embodies, all of those aspects of, loving something, sharing it with others, engaging it in every way. I would say that for Marina, the ocean is a full immersion experience. I first got to know her. Some of you this afternoon will have your own full ocean, immersion experience with the ocean. And hopefully will come down and join us, even though it's not a very warm day, and swimming, from Bar Island. I met Marina at the Bar Island swim, didn't really know who she was, except that then every day thereafter, she would continue to jump into the ocean. And those of you who haven't been here in January, the ocean's really cold. And she was still going down there every day, and I would see her blue body as she came back up from the ocean to go to class. Whether she's doing, research for class, out doing plastics research in the bay, excitedly sharing sea critters with, friends and colleagues, bringing up dead things from the beach to show them, pestering Toby to let her take sailboats out on the ocean and develop a sailing program at COA, or interviewing fishermen in Down East communities. Marina loves everything about water, everything about the ocean, and everything about the people who are making their living or love the ocean as well. And the last thing that you should know about her, and those of you who know her know this, is that she also sings about it any chance she has. Marina, you can come up.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, John, Anne, Ernie, and Suzanne for those lovely awards, and congratulations to the students. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dominic Montanga. So we're pleased and honored to have Dominic here from the class of 2004, and he's back with us today to talk about human ecology in action. Dominic was a Davis Scholar coming to us from the United World College of the Atlantic in Wales. And while at COA, his internship was with the Austrian-Zimbabwe Friendship Association in Zimbabwe, if I'm correct. His final project was titled A Business Plan Establishing the BWAACA Cultural Center. Dominic continued his interests by pursuing a master's degree in nonprofit management at Washington University in St. Louis, which he completed in 2006. Dominic has also worked in New York City in both city government with various nonprofits. More recently, Dominic has been working as a special projects advisor to the Minister of Education in Zimbabwe, correct? Yeah, in Zimbabwe. This work includes coordinating policy and nonprofit folks and lawyers to address school reform. Dominic hopes to improve governance, increase parental involvement, and balance needing to sustain schools through fees while establishing good access to them. His recent projects have been initiatives to ensure every child in primary school has a textbook and efforts to bring technology to schools. Dominic is an alum who clearly demonstrates the ways in which one can use a degree in human ecology and an education in human ecology to effect positive change in one's community. We're looking forward to his remarks, and once again, I'd like to welcome Dominic Muntanga back to College of the Atlantic.
That's a good start, right? All right. Members of the Board of Trustees, President Collins, members of staff and faculty, friends, I see some friends who came to hear me speak, students, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is it the weather? I should have brought the sun with me from Zimbabwe, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I wanted to ask you some questions before I start my talk. How many of you went to bed hungry last night? Not because you were losing weight, but because you couldn't afford to get a meal? And how many of you have ever had the experience of being kicked out of class because you failed to pay your fees? I ask these questions not to make you feel bad about being on the 4-year meal plan, but because issues of poverty, issues of hunger, issues of environmental degradation are some of the questions that really attracted me to this place in 2000. And I was one of those kids who was kicked out of school when I was little. Today, I stand before you with immense gratitude to speak about my experiences since I left this place. Now, I've been asked to talk to you about how I'm using my education of human ecology out in the world. But I thought at first I would talk to you about what education in general meant to me as an individual and also to my family and others around me. And then I want to also spend some time talking to you about how I'm trying to use my education to transform the lives of others. And I hope that by talking to you in that manner, I'm going to be able to perhaps inspire you to think, particularly the students, to think a lot about your time in this place and how you can make the most out of this place that we all love, COA. As I told you before, I'm from a poor family, or let me say I was from a poor family, and I had the experience of, being kicked out of school when I was little. But then in the year 98, I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to go to study in the United World Colleges in Wales. And let me tell you, just so you get a picture of what it meant then for me, let me explain to you how bad my situation was then. I got this, I think, $50,000 scholarship to study for 2 years, and I didn't have any money at all. I got to London, I had 20 pounds, and I was supposed to make a transfer from Gatwick to Heathrow. And the bus ticket to go from Gatwick to Heathrow cost like 11 pounds. So I had 9 pounds. And those of you who know me will know something about the fact that I love KFC. So I spent part of the £9 to actually buy myself some chicken. And that's when that bond with KFC was cemented for me. And I'm saying this to say to you that for you to get to understand how anxious I must have been at the time. I was young, I was in a new country, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any money. But I was very hopeful, and I was very, very pleased that I was going to school. And I'm sure that there were other millions of kids who were similarly situated, who were probably much more intelligent than I was, who didn't have that opportunity. Fast forward 2 years after my college experience in Wales, I got this small letter from COA asking me, offering me a scholarship. And again, I was facing the same problem. Here I was being offered $150,000 over 4 years in terms of scholarship, but I couldn't come up with $283 for the ticket. And it's not like I was in Zimbabwe where I could have thought, maybe I'll just walk this one out for a month, and I'll get there maybe when school starts. It was very far, I couldn't do anything. So I emailed Sarah Ketchum, then, now Sarah Baker, and the school bought a ticket for me, and I was able to come to COA. And I can tell you, that's the first lesson I learned about human ecology. This out-of-the-box thinking and the concern for other people. Here I was, a kid from Zimbabwe, being offered the opportunity of an education by a total stranger. Now that you probably know him now, is Shelby Davis. And that was the first experiential learning for me. That was the first lesson ever in human ecology. Now, over the course of my 4 years here at COA, I worked really hard, and I became very instrumental in assisting my family financially. Whenever there was somebody who got sick at home, the phone would ring asking for funds, and I would send money. When somebody got pregnant, they would call me. When babies were born, they would call me. And it was the same, and I'm sure it's the same for some of the international students who are here with us today. And I'm really, really grateful that that access to education allowed me to be in a position to actually assist my family. Now, if you're an international student, you probably have heard this kind of story before, where some poor kid from some village in Africa gets a scholarship, goes somewhere and studies. What if you're from Nebraska, or you're from Omaha, you're from California, you're from Alaska, and you're from a community where access to education, at least up to high school, is not as difficult as it is in other parts of the country? What's the relevance of my story to you? Now, let me tell you something. Whether you're on a scholarship, or you're on a student loan, or you're actually paying for yourself, you can also appreciate the fact that in some parts of the country, obviously, education is a privilege. But the most that you can appreciate about this message is the fact that the world as we know it today, and the world as it ever has been, and life as we know it, is made possible by our interdependence as human beings. And the concern for other people is, I believe, the core message of what this school is trying to teach us. Not just concern for people, but concern for the environment, concern for everything around us, and for us as humans. That's the message that I took from this place. And today, in my life, I'm trying to use what I've learned from this place to actually live my life that way. So you will see there's a pattern in pretty much all the careers that I've chosen. I've been trying to find ways in which I can make some kind of meaning out of my life, but also make a contribution to the world around me. Now, it's easy to talk about COA in big picture in terms of the philosophy of human ecology. And we can spend a lot of time. I know some of you are going to spend 4 years now trying to think about this question of what human ecology is. And for those of you who are graduating, you're probably going to be struggling with this extended essay on what human ecology is. But for me, it has come down to a very simple value system, which is this, as I said before, this concern for others. And it's very, very important that you understand that message. Because when you look at the world today, my country is a prime example. When you look at what's happening in my country, you see there's a huge deficit in this value system of the concern for others. When you look at the global commons in terms of the environment, what humans are doing to the environment, and also the impact that we have on that, you'll see that this concern for our commons, this concern for other people is missing. When you look at the wars that we are seeing in this world, you see that the concern for other people is missing. And I hope that this is one of the messages that you take out of this place. So how have I tried to live my understanding of human ecology? It has been said in the introduction that when I was here in 2002, I went back home. I worked with the Austria-Zimbabwe Friendship Association to try and raise money to put in place computer centers in the villages. And the idea there was very simple, that we have a number of people who live in the villages who have no access to news, they have no access to information, and if you're growing up in that part of the country, essentially you are pretty much out of the world in that you don't know what's going on in other parts of the world. So I took that and I said, well, perhaps we should do something about it. And I went back home and tried to raise money to put that in place. Since graduating, I've also worked with a number of nonprofits, and I particularly also chose the field of nonprofit management because I thought it would actually give me the tools to actually be able to make a contribution. It's also the same that here at COA. Now that I'm working in the education sector at home, I feel that it's an opportunity for me to be able to give other children a chance that I probably would have never had. On average in Zimbabwe, we have about 50,000 children drop out of school every year. It's a population of, say, about 3.5 million primary level. And using my skills in the not-for-profit sector, I've been able to work with the ministry to actually raise money. And recently we raised about $3 million that we're going to use to start a pilot program where we're actually going to run programs to study what's happening with these dropouts. Say somebody drops out of school, what happens to them? And also to run some programs, accelerated learning programs that would actually get them back into school. And that's one of the ways in which I've been trying to use my education. But in also working in the Ministry of Education, some of you may have read about what's been happening in Zimbabwe, the politics and our dear president who doesn't want to get out of power. It's been very, very challenging, in part because culturally, you can't, for instance, even if you're young and even if you know something that the adults don't know, you can't easily speak up. And having been trained in the United States where ideas are put forward more than, age is revered, of course, but it's more important what ideas you have. Sometimes it's a real big struggle to actually try and convince people on some of the changes that we have had to make. But I'm really, really glad that I was here at COA, and every day that I'm at work, I'm always referencing some of the things that I learned here. For instance, I learned in Bonnie Ty's class about multiple intelligences. In our school system in Zimbabwe, you find that the education system is very, very highly academic. So it doesn't give an opportunity to kids who have talents in the arts or sports or who can do anything that is not non-academic. And as part of my work, I've been able to sort of get some of the people convinced that we need to sort of take a different route. And in the next few months, we're going to be revamping our education curriculum. And as part of that, we're going to be looking at how to actually make sure that we teach not just the academics, but also increase teaching on sports, arts, and culture. I also have learned a lot about conservation in this place. And that's one of the things that we are trying to change at home. We're going to try, as part of the new curriculum, we're going to try and get students to learn more about looking after the environment, learning about conservation. Because obviously our country is really big on agriculture, and we're trying to teach how students how they can actually look after the environment in a much better way. I also have been working to start up a non-profit organization, well, since 2008. This non-profit organization, because Zimbabwe has been doing very badly over the last 10 years, we've had a huge migration of professionals in the health sector, in the education sector. In fact, about 25% of the population has left the country and are now all over the place, in the UK, in South Africa. And one of the things we're trying to do with this non-profit organization is to actually create systems that allow for us to leverage the skills and resources of Zimbabweans abroad so that they can make a contribution to the country, whether they are in the country or outside of the country. So through this non-profit organization, we've been able to collect books, medical supplies, and I remember, for instance, in 2009, there were about 19 students in the local university who couldn't sit for their examinations because they needed medical supplies to actually train, and they couldn't sit for their exams or even train because they didn't have access to that to the medical supplies. So we raised money from Zimbabweans abroad, and we were able to actually get them supplies from South Africa, and they sat for exams, and now they're dentists. The other thing that I really learned from this place is to understand different cultures and systems, and to also really respect where other people are coming from. And that has been very invaluable in my job. Part of my job is to raise money for the sector, and I have to go to the Japanese, to the Germans, to the English, to everybody. And the ability to understand these different cultures and to have had an opportunity to learn with so many different people from different countries has also allowed me to be able to be a little bit more effective in my current job. Now, for most of you, it's very likely that your life is going to take a different path. And if there's anything you should take home this afternoon, it is that in our unique ways, we need to really embrace the concern for others in our work. Whatever you decide to do in your life, perhaps you should remember two things. One, that your individual actions, no matter how small, can really, really make a difference. I spoke to you earlier about one of these things that I'm doing with the nonprofits. Another nonprofit that I'm working on, and I've been doing this since 2002, is we started a very small scholarship foundation, because I understand, I got scholarships, so I understand what it means to be on a scholarship. And what we do with this, we basically pay for kids to go to high school. The idea is that once they get to high school, if they do well, somebody else can probably give them a scholarship at the university level. And we started off with a bunch of friends. We collected, $25. And we have put about, more than 100 kids through school using that program. And it's $25. It sounds so small. It's not $150,000. But I've been getting a lot of messages on Facebook. Like, last year when I moved back home, I got a message from this kid who said I should come for his graduation. He was finishing his university degree, and now he's in a much, much better position to actually help his family and help himself. And there are many more other kids like that we have put through school. And all of that, I'm really, really grateful for, because this place was my foundation. This was the beginning for me. This was the place where I was able to learn the tools and the skills to be able to make a difference, not just in my life, but in other people's lives. Now, I know that some of you are studying today at COA, well, this week. And in closing, I want you to really think about how you can use your time here to the best and make the best out of this place. And you may feel like maybe, there's a lot you can do, and maybe you may want to, postpone what you can do today and say to yourself, oh, I'll maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But let me tell you this, time is never enough. I wish that I was starting with you today in the class, because since I left, there's so much more that I've realized that I don't know, and I would have loved to actually be enrolling in a class here. So to all of you who are starting, and even to all of you who have been here before, I really would encourage you to use every minute to develop all your talents, explore new subjects, talk to new people. Make sure every time, don't sit on the same table and take a break. Go sit with different people. There's always something new that you can learn. Do not limit yourself. Travel, dance, but don't drink and drive. Now, if you think you have a lot of time, you should think about this. If you want to know how precious a year is, ask a senior who has just failed a class that is only offered once every spring. If you want to know more about how precious a month is, ask a mother who has given birth to a premature baby. If you want to know how important a second is, ask someone who has just survived a car accident by a second. And finally, if you want to know how important a millisecond is, ask an Olympian who has just lost a gold medal by a millisecond. Every second of your time at COA is precious. Use it meaningfully. And I trust that you will use it wisely to enrich your life so that you can be better positioned to make a difference in this world and live the true meaning of human ecology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dominic. That was lovely. I'm now going to invite John Cooper and Daniel Hilliard again to come up and give us a brief musical interlude.
Those of you that were here yesterday, and yes, I am that person. That's right. I know that's what you're mentioning. It is me. Well put, Dominic, so well. Which means those of you that are musicians, get your butts into the practice room and practice a lot more. When you guys were here yesterday, Gray was asking about languages and so forth, and that's precisely why I'm here. This is a language that you need to learn, because as a human ecologist, you have to be able to be articulate and communicative in as many ways as possible. Music is one of them, art's one of them, theater, dance, film, the arts particularly, but every language you could possibly speak, every type of dialect and cultural way that you can speak to other people that might not understand the way we think at academic institutions. But the less I say, actually, the better. I should actually play. I know Darren really well from the times that he was a student here. In fact, he was on my search committee. He hired me. And that's one of the reasons why I love him so much, and that's one of the reasons. That's actually one of the reasons why I came here from a very good job, and actually in civilization. Down in Philadelphia, where I could play Atlantic City and all sorts of cool gigs and so forth like that. But the maturity of Darren Collins as a student, and as you could just see right there, the maturity of Dominic. Hopefully that's what all you folks are going to be 4 years from now. People like that command a room and can command respect because of the hard work that those students or yourselves will put into your times here. And that's really important because we all need all of us to do the best we can. Yeah? But I know Darren has an Irish grandmother, and I know Darren likes Coltrane, John Coltrane, even though John Coltrane has Scottish ancestry. That's true, actually. It's true. So I'm going to try to do both. If you were listening and actually you have some musical background, you would have heard Naniel. Let's have a hand for Naniel. We were playing a number of Coltrane pieces before, and we'll do one after you guys are already moving out the door. But I wanted to combine one more with something for Darren's grandmother. So I'm going to well, see. Right. I'm not even going to say a word about that. Just want you to hear how much better it sounds on this instrument. By John Coltrane named Naima.
So I hope I don't have to tell any of you guys that Darren Collins is our very first alumni president. I hope you all know that. Darren graduated in the class of '92. So without further ado, welcome home, Darren.
Nice work. Great. Check. Check. 140 or so, that's not too bad. I love this place. I just love this college. From the first time that I stepped out of my father's car back in 1987 when he dropped me off as a prospective student, and I stood face to face with the fin whale skull, to my first convocation, which was a year later in 1988 when they let me in, to my first graduation, June 6th, my only graduation from here, 1992, out in the North Lawn, when it rained so hard. My poor Irish grandmother who came up had such a wicked time. And then to May 10th of 2011, where I stood on the stage and talked to a big group and asked and pleaded, please, please let me be your next president. And now here, I love the College of the Atlantic. I really do. Although I have to say, I had lunch in the take-a-break, and no one sat with me. And I was I felt like my third grader who is now, a new kid, and sat in the, sat down and was kind of the dork, in the corner. Even with that, I really do love this place. And I'm ready. I just want you all to know I'm ready to give you everything I've got. Everything I've got. For some schools, convocation actually means the graduation, which is kind of interesting. Convocation is also the collective noun for eagles, which I think is pretty relevant for this group. But here in the United States and many colleges, and here at the college, it's the opening of the school year, right, with special regard for our new students. And we don't call them freshmen here, right, because most of them are women anyway. And they're not fresh. They come with a really, really deep understanding of things, and that's special. But there are 100, right on the nose, 100, 96 new undergraduates, 4 new graduates, 33 countries, and 38 states. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. But there's also a bunch of new staff and faculty. Toby Stevenson, are you here, Toby? Toby's our new boat captain, right? Yeah, we can have a clap for, yeah. And when I say new, it's everybody since January 1, 2011. It's kind of a random cutoff. Stephen Voisin, I don't know, I haven't met Stephen, but he's working in the kitchen. Kim Childs, where's Kim? There's Kim, way in the back. Kim, let me tell you, I blame Kim for something. She works in development, and I blame Kim for my kind of Pavlovian response of these past 6 weeks. I've been on the road meeting people and doing a lot of fundraising. And now every time I hear a spoon click up against the glass, cling, I stand up and I say, hello, my name is Darren Collins, and welcome you. So I blame Kim for that, but thank you, Kim, for all the hard work you're doing. Christy Benson is a chem lab technician. Is Christy here? But thank you, Christy. Tanya Lubansky is a researcher in Allied Whale. Heath, where's my new anthropologist friend? Heath Cavett, there she is, and Salvatore. All right. Great to have you. Linda Fuller is our new Associate Director of ED. Thank you, Linda. And Ryan Bolden, who's a physicist. Thank you, Ryan. I will say, Ryan and Dave Feldman were sitting together in the cafeteria, and I said, they're the two physics geeks. Also, welcome, a very, very new welcome to Juniper Macco, born yesterday. Juniper is the daughter of Kate and Ben. Ben's an alum. Kate works for us, as you well know. For some reason, she went to some other main school that we don't like to talk about. But, and then Juniper is the granddaughter of Rock Cavano and Helen Cavano. So that's great. So this is a welcome. This new group is joining a total student body of about 353 people, 41 faculty, about 70 staff, 30 trustees, thank you for all of you trustees that are here, and about 3,000 alumni. And you're joining not just a college, you're joining a family, you're joining a workshop, you're joining an experiment, and you're joining an expedition, right? What I like to think of as a kayaker as a first descent. You're joining all these things together, and we're in this together. And in joining all these things, you're joining a place where the president is first and foremost a servant of the group and does not stand up here. Yeah. I got that from Ed Kaelber, who's here, because I know that when Ed was founding president, there was an opportunity for the college to buy some land up on Strawberry Hill. Isn't that right, Ed? Yep. And the reason they didn't do it is because they didn't want the town to point and say, there are those college people up on the hill. Similarly, I don't want you pointing up at me here. We're all in this together. So I want to take this from down here. So in this family, in this workshop, in this startup business, which is another thing we are, in an experiment, in our first descent, we don't just welcome at Convocation, but we also pay respect. We've paid respect already in many ways, but it's kind of scary to me that 4 days from now we'll celebrate the 10th anniversary of September 11th. It's hard to believe that 10 years went by. I remember, as we all remember what happened that day, I was in Switzerland, and I was cut off from my wife and my 3-month-old, who are 5 miles away from the Pentagon. And I was scared, and it was a tough time. So at Real Pizza on Sunday, the community is coming together to have a forum from 1:30 to 3:30 to talk about what it means to be 10 years out from September 11th. And so I encourage you all to attend that. But on a much lighter and happier note, we're coming up on our 40th anniversary. I'd like to recognize 5 people here. And the first person I'd like to recognize is Millard Doherty. Why don't you fix this thing? Sorry. That was obviously staged. I'm all right. Don't worry. Millard, as many of you know, was the 3rd person, right, Ed, to be hired. I mean, when Ed was the first staffer, and then Ann Peach, the 2nd staffer, right, Les? Isn't that right? Yeah. And then Millard. So thank you, Millard, for 40 years. Yeah. Fantastic. I've learned so much from Millard, guitar, musically, everything. So I thank you personally. But it also goes to show that the College of the Atlantic is about this unique trilogy between students, faculty, and staff. Right? That is a hard triangle to break. And so thank you, Millard, and all the work you've done. Is Bill Carpenter here? No, Bill's not here. Okay, so I took... He's what? He's home writing, good. I I took Bread, Love, and Dreams from Bill, right? And he forced me to channel my darkest inner self. Yeah, thanks, Bill. That was great. Yeah, I appreciate that, right? I prefer that just stay up where, there. Ernie's here. Ernie, I never took a class from Ernie. I was one that avoided Ernie, but I did take, and I don't know if you remember this, a black and white photography class. And Ernie came in to give a critique on all of our work in black and white photography. And let's just say that that's where I learned to face failure. And as we've talked about, that's an important thing. Katona's here. There's Steve and Susie, who come as a package in many cases. I got the great chance to learn from Steve as a faculty member and now learn from him as president. So thank you. Susie, I don't mean to, you on your own right, And you and I think Elmer, right, came in about the same time as half-time faculty. Elmer, the other anthropologist, make me feel home here, fly fisherman extraordinaire. Thank you, Elmer and Susie. Yeah. So again, a personal thank you. You've all meant a lot to me individually, but obviously as the community, as this family, workshop, startup company, experiment, and first descent of a river, you all mean so much to us. Now, one final thank you. COA is used to overcoming tough times. We all, think about the fire in 1983 and what a just crazy time that must have been. And in terms of storms, they're not new to us. My own oops trip with Ron Beard and Ted Kaufman, we got blown off course and then blown into shore and had to abandon ship, so to speak. But Sarah Luke, where's Sarah? Sarah. Sarah, with a storm of new arrivals and the storm of Hurricane Irene. Now, Sarah will be the first to tell you she didn't do it alone, obviously. Brett, Becca, and Scout and their group of 18 leaders, the Mount Desert Rock team, Toby, Chris, and Alex. I mean, these guys really came and pulled together and not only avoided disaster, but made oops just an unbelievable experience. And I hope as many of you as possible participated. But thank you, Sarah and team. Yeah. Anna. Kip. Kip, I'm sorry, where's Kip? Kip, where? Hey, Kip. Sorry. Thank you, Anna. What would I do without Anna? I'm not sure. So I'm wondering how many of you think this entire book is filled with notes. So don't worry, it's not. This brings me to my third and final part of what I want Convocation to be. It's a welcome, it's a respect for things in the past, but it's also a set of my own recommendations to incoming students. And of course, this is where I could go off on wild tangents and take long time and put everybody to sleep. But I won't do that. But I still feel that as your servant, coming from a long line of servants, starting with my own Irish grandmother, in this family workshop and startup and experiment and first descent, it's somewhat my responsibility to maybe give a little bit of guidance to the incoming students. This isn't a vision for the school. I mean, it's funny, I've been here 6 weeks and everybody asks me, what's your vision, what's your vision? The reporter from the Bangor Daily News yesterday, what's your vision? It would be really irresponsible of me after 6 weeks to say, this is my vision here, come follow me. My first year is about listening, because we have to realize this vision together, not just one person and try and convince you all to come along, but we got to do it together. So in this, this next section that is guidance, I hope I don't sound like the old man. Well, when I was a student at COA, you know, it was this way, because I know when I was 18 and came in, I heard that plenty of times. But I have 3 things that I'd just like you, all new students, to walk away with, to file up here. First, and this is for first years especially, do an honest self-assessment of yourself, right? Talk about ways of knowing, Dominic did. Writing, oral skills, visual acuity, music, quantitative reasoning, and kinesthetics, learning with your body. Do a self-assessment. Figure out what you're good at and what you're not so good at. Because each of those, like Dominic said, is a way that a skill you're going to have to do human ecology successfully. And find out what you're not good at and poke at those and work at them. Second, develop some thick skin. Because more than likely, your self-assessment is probably not honest, and not everyone is going to agree with you. I'm not going to go into the story of writing and Anne, how I came and I thought I was such a great writer, and it turns out I wasn't. But find where your weaknesses are and develop some thick skin, shed your ego a little bit, and be ready to learn. And very much related to that, push yourself mentally and physically. Now, here's a great story. When I was in Guatemala, spent a few years there, and there was a great expat that I came to know, and he went to Purdue University, and he was a schoolmate of Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong, after he was in the Navy, went to Purdue, and he was so intense, such an intense guy, he would run full speed until he vomited and passed out, right? Then, in his dorm room, he would roll down the stairs to see how he could avoid injury. He pushed himself to failure to find out how he could be better. Now, Sarah Luke is looking at me, picturing people rolling downstairs at Seafox, right? Don't do that. Think about it mentally, right? Think about rolling down mental stairs, right? Because in this family, in this workshop, in this startup business, in this experiment, and in this first descent of a river, there are lots of people that can help you get back up and succeed. Push yourself. And finally, third, last comment, learn kinesthetically. It's maybe the one that we forget about the most. Go out and build something. Yvon Chouinard, who's the CEO of Patagonia, a company I really like, for all of his new incoming senior staffers, he would take them to a shop, right? And in this shop, they would hammer away the pitons that Patagonia first made. They would do blacksmithing to understand what the core value of Patagonia is. They learned kinesthetically. Do it here also. That may involve dancing. I'm not very good at it. It's one of those things where maybe I think I'm good at it, I'm not so good at it. But most importantly, get outside. We're in Acadia National Park. You could literally walk out this door and in 5 minutes be on Witch Hole Pond. Do it. Get outside, go up Mount Katahdin. Some of you already went to Baxter. Penobscot, hopefully we're going to hit the Penobscot on Sunday. Go to the islands. Think globally, but don't forget what's right here in your backyard. And so, with that last piece of advice, that the 2000